from Indianapolis. Um, one of my very dear friends, whose last name I still can't pronounce, is here with us to tell us his story. So, if you could unmute yourself, John, and say hello, please.
Oh, hello everyone. Good
So,
evening.
John's a general dentist in Indianapolis. He graduated from IU 11 years ago, so he's just passed new dentist. He's got me beat by a year.
Oh
And
man, sweet.
he lectures all over the country and the world, and is super into digital dentistry and implant dentistry. He kind of does a little bit of everything. He's owned a bunch of practices. Now he owns one practice. You can catch him live down at 3 Dentists in North Carolina and over at Implant Pathway in Arizona. And I am going to turn the floor over to him. Take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the really nice welcome. Seriously, I need you to come to my office or tell my team all these nice things because they seem to think that I just am messing around every day and that I don't actually go and teach or talk to people. And so it's really refreshing to have somebody that kind of appreciates what I do. So I'm, in all seriousness, I'm excited to be here and to spend some time with everyone over the next hour or so and just kind of give you a glimpse into the world that is coming up to face all of you soon. So my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've got a lot of students that are in various points of their journey. Is that correct, Annalie? Okay,
Yes,
so everyone's
we
kind
have
of
many students from every class year.
excellent, great. Okay, so good, perfect. So that makes me feel better that I didn't make a D1 lecture and we've got some older students. So perfect. So this is going to be a little bit of a non-traditional type of lecture. It's not like I'm going to be putting up slides. In fact, I have no slides. I have no pictures of teeth. This is the first time I'm doing it this way. So we're just going to sit here and I'm going to share some of my experiences with you and hopefully help you understand a little bit about what type of expectations you should have for everything that's coming up in front of you. And I don't know about you, but when I was in dental school, there was none of that. We got zero talk about business. We got zero talk about patient management. We got zero discussion about how to find a job or what the expectation should be once we get out and have a job. So maybe you're getting a little bit more of this than I did, but for me, there was nothing, and I can't blame them. There's too much to learn and not enough time. And, so I'm sitting here in my practice. This is actually my office that I'm in, and I can't ever get away from it, even on my off days. And it's coming up on 11 years since I graduated and almost 8 years to the day since I bought this practice. It was May 13th, 2013. And it was just another lovely spring day, kind of like today. And negotiations and all the deal making and everything had been going really smoothly to buy this practice. And I was so excited because it was the moment that I had been dreaming of all through dental school. And, the whole time in dental school and my first job and my residency, I'd always thought about owning a practice, and it was what I aspired to. And so here we are coming up on the big day. And I show up at the bank. It's this, ornate bank building. And I walk in the front door. The receptionist brings me back into the conference room. I'm there by myself. She offers me a drink. And luckily, the bank was based in Louisville, Kentucky. And so they had a great bourbon selection. I picked the best bourbon that I could find. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, okay, this is what it's like to be a businessman, right? Sitting in the bank, getting deals done. I'll be honest, it felt pretty good. It was kind of cool. And then slowly, one by one, all the other key players came in. We had the banker come in, and suddenly there were 5 bankers that I'd never seen before. Apparently, they needed a lot of them to get a lot of my signatures. And then we had the broker that represented the seller come in, and the seller herself came in, and finally attorneys came in, and they're still writing notes, and they had to reprint a contract, all the way up until the very last minute. And so it felt so good and so exciting that I finally was doing what I wanted. And then, just like so many things in life, there's this huge buildup and you're so excited about it. And then just like that, it's over. And I don't know if any of you have bought a home before, but it's the same thing. The first time you buy your home, you're so excited about it and you're so nervous about it and you don't think you're going to do it well. And then just like that, it's over. You're like, that was it? And the other person in the room is like, that was it? And you're like, yeah, I guess so. And so, we sign paperwork. Everyone starts to leave the room and they're like, all right, best of luck, John. We wish you the best. We know that you'll do great. We know that you'll do really well. And suddenly I'm left alone in the room with my thoughts. And I say, I guess it's like time to get to work now. And, it's no more playtime. So a few hours later, I show up at the practice and I've got this big speech planned out in my head that I've rehearsed over and over and over again. And I'm excited to meet my team for the first time, transition the practice into my hands. And I open the door, go into the reception area, and I will never forget this until the day I die. I walk in and I'm expecting to see all these happy faces, excited to see me. And instead, I see 5 sets of eyes staring back at me, crying. And I'm not talking like these girls were crying because they were excited for their doctor for selling the practice or any of that. No, this was like the ugly cry, like tears streaming down the face, like hair everywhere, makeup everywhere. People are like one girl, her face was so red, I thought she was going to explode, like truly thought she was going to blow up. And just like that, my plan out the window. And I'm thinking to myself on the fly, I'm like, nobody told me about this. I just bought a business. Everyone's supposed to be so happy for me. Everyone told me this was going to be great. And so my well-rehearsed plan suddenly turned into a million questions. I'm just getting peppered by these people. And these are my employees now, and they are just interrogating me. Like, what do you plan to do about this? What are you going to do with our hours? What are you going to do with our pay? And it went on and on and on for about an hour and a half. And by the end of it, I just felt defeated. And I'm like, holy crap, this is day 0. This isn't even day 1. And I already feel beat up. What have I done? And I legitimately felt like I made a huge mistake because my dream suddenly turned out to be not anything like I expected it. And so my initial reaction was to be upset or angry and like try to find somebody to blame, like the broker or maybe the selling doctor, or, why didn't you tell me it would be like this? And, the selling doctor kind of shrugged and said, well, that's the way it goes. It wasn't her problem. The broker said, well, we see this sometimes. I didn't really think it would happen. And suddenly it's my problem to deal with. And I realize now, and of course, hindsight is always 20/20, but I realize now that I was so excited about this prospect, and I was so excited about the logistics and making the deal happen and opening the checking account and getting the Amex card and, setting up all these business systems, and all those things got me going. But I didn't really think about the other side of the equation, which were the other people that were going to be affected by this. And really what happened was I had unrealistic expectations. And too often in life, we find ourselves doing this where we just are expecting things to go one way, but without really looking at it on the other side of the coin. And so that's what I'm hoping we can accomplish today over the next 30, 40 minutes is I can help you set some realistic expectations about what is going to happen to you in the coming months and years for some of you as you enter the workforce. Just like I expected the team to be excited for me and excited about me coming in, I expected the patients to feel the same way. And really, there were some struggles with that at first too. And that comes down to some of the things that we're going to touch on later in life. Now, this story certainly has a happy ending in the end, but it took some time to get there, and it took some time for me to get over these things. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. And when you hear me give you very realistic, real world examples of struggling and even failing in some circumstances, it's not meant to scare anyone or take away from the excitement about what's coming up in the future. But really, it's because I'm hoping that my experiences can help, even if it's just one person, avoid making some of the mistakes that I've made, then it's worth it to share it with all of you. So it's an exciting time in all of your careers, especially for those of you that are getting closer to the end of your dental school journey. It's an exciting time. And just like I was excited about this next step in my journey, I want you to be equally cautious about what's coming and really think about what you're doing today and how it's going to impact everything in the future. But it's also an exciting time in dentistry. The innovation and technology, the access to postgraduate education is greater than we've ever had. And for somebody like myself that graduated 10 years ago, I was never even exposed to things like 3D x-rays or CEREC machines, or we didn't even know what an implant was in dental school. I mean, they like showed us one slide picture of an implant. And they're like, that's an implant. If you ever see one, send it to a surgeon or a prosthodontist. And that kind of ended that story. But today, you can go to a week-long continuum and they'll teach you how to place implants. And next thing you know, you're actually doing them in the practice. And it's pretty cool that we live in this day and age. And so it's exciting, but it's also rife with some pitfalls and opportunities to fall into bad habits. So you're going to hear me talk a lot about this delicate balance between being humble, but also being equal parts hungry. And I wish I could go back and talk to myself 11 years ago and give myself this same advice, that for as much excitement and hunger and drive as we have to succeed, we also need to be equally humble and thankful for what we have in the moment, because it's so easy to get fixated on what's in front of us and lose sight of what we have right here in the moment. And so, again, these stories are simply my story. Everyone's story is going to be different, but hopefully we can take some of this along the way, and we can figure this out together. Now, when we get all wrapped up, there's going to be some time if there's any questions, comments. If anyone wants to tell me that, I'm an idiot for some of the things I've done, please let me have it. If anyone wants to ask questions about some of the specific parts of my journey, we'll also have some time for that. Now, in order to really tell you about where or who I am, I think we need to go back a little bit further too. And so let's go back 3 years prior to that, when I was just getting out of dental school. And just like some of you, really didn't know what I wanted. I knew I wanted to own a practice and run a business, but I didn't know what kind of dentistry I wanted to practice. I didn't know whether I wanted to be in a big city, a small town. I didn't even know geographically where I wanted to be. All I knew was that at that moment, I lived in Indianapolis. My wife worked for Eli Lilly, a big corporation in town. And so I said, let's buy ourselves another year and I'll enroll in this GPR program at the Veterans Hospital. So I signed up for this program and it seemed like a good fit. I really enjoyed the idea of working with veterans and helping them out and helping them in any way that I could, however big or small. And figured it would also give me a chance to get some more repetitions on certain things like fillings and crowns and taking some teeth out. And in that way, it was a slam dunk for me, because as soon as I got there, I realized there was no shortage of work to do. There was no shortage of crowns and fillings and extractions. And I did a whole rotation in anesthesia and oral surgery and just some really, really cool experiences. But in the back of my head, I still had this nagging thing that was kind of eating away at me. And it was that I wanted to own a practice. And then I started seeing some of my classmates and some of the people a few years older than me that were buying practices or getting into these really, really great high-paying jobs. And here I am, some resident, saying, what the hell am I doing here? I want to be doing that. And so I started my search a little bit more in depth for a practice. By this point in time, I had figured out that I wanted to move south and get a little bit warmer, and found a practice outside of Columbia, South Carolina. I went down a few times to visit the practice, met with the doctor. Everything seemed to kind of check out. I had a couple of advisors look at it. They said, sure, it looks like a decent deal. And so I was faced with an issue. I really wanted the practice. I really wanted the move, but I was only midway through my residency. And so I made what at the time felt like the right decision. And looking at it now was probably a pretty selfish decision, but I ended up quitting my residency midway through and turned in my notice mid-November to a very surprised residency director and clinical team there. I packed up my car, left my wife behind to try and sell the home, and I moved down to South Carolina and drove down all night long, met with the doctor, met with the office manager, and then finally did what all these professionals had been urging me to do all along. I finally did a full comprehensive chart audit, and I spent the next 3 days tearing through the charts, looking at billing, looking at x-rays and photos, and trying to evaluate the work of this doctor. And I came to a pretty harsh reality in doing this, that there were some things that didn't quite add up. There were some billing inconsistencies. There was a lot of questionable diagnosis going on. There were some things that I didn't like about the way that he was documenting things. And unfortunately, that all led me down this road to say, this is actually probably not for me. And so unlike my later experience where I went to a bank and had this incredible experience and felt like such an important business person, I go to this rural South Carolina bank. Again, I'm the first one in the room. So they seat me in the corner of this tiny conference room. It's probably like 8 by 10, and everyone's crammed in there. And it's an abnormally hot November day, and everyone's kind of sweating and like a little testy about like being in this room to begin with. And people start sliding paperwork my way. And I look everyone in the eyes and say, gentlemen, it hurts me to say this, but this deal isn't going to happen. This practice isn't a good fit for me. And Dr. Walsh, I wish you the best, but I'm going to have to take off. And I'm sitting in this room with all of these people staring at me, and, you know, like the banjos start playing, and I was worried I was going to get like buried in this South Carolina forest somewhere and not make it out of there alive. Luckily they had mercy on me, and I was able to tuck my tail between my legs and drive back to Indianapolis. And along the way, look, that was a 12-hour drive. I had a lot of time to think and to reflect on what I did, and realized that not only did I make maybe a little bit of a foolhardy decision in buying a practice that wasn't fully vetted, I also realized that unfortunately I had sacrificed what was a really great opportunity at the moment, meaning my residency, in order to gain something for the future. And I say unfortunate because had I stuck out the residency program, I probably would have ended up in a better position than I had been when I left. I wouldn't have had to face that kind of, embarrassment and those kind of things by making this decision. And I also wouldn't have left people in a pretty unfortunate position. And for all those things, I really regretted that for quite a while. Now, luckily, I was able to find a job pretty quickly and get into a good position. And like I said, I truly believe things work out for a reason. But it was a good lesson in humility for me, that I really need to be thankful for what I have at the moment. And don't get so busy looking ahead to the future, because for all of you, you're going to reach a point where a better job opportunity is going to come up, or maybe a better practice opportunity, or any number of things can come along your path, and you're going to have to really analyze that decision. And I just ask that you all do a little bit better job at thinking this through, and maybe getting some professional help if you need to, whether that's an advisor or even just a good friend to talk through this with you, because I don't want to see anyone go through this kind of hard decision that I made. Now, there are some things that we can be doing right now in the present day that are going to help us not just excel in the future, but help catapult us into the future. And I think for any soon-to-be or new graduate, there's really 3 areas that we need to focus on. And number 1 is a clinical skill set and improving our clinical skill set. And dental school is good at a lot of things. It's not so good at a lot of things too. And that's not the dental school's fault. It's certainly not our fault as the students, but we come out of there knowing just enough to not hurt someone and to do kind of the bare minimum requirements of the job. And again, that's not a slight on anyone. That's just the fact. There's a lot to learn in 4 years. And for most of us, really patient care takes place over 18 to 24 months. And that's just simply not enough time to get the repetitions that we need. And so by becoming proficient in the basic clinical dentistry that we need, that will become the foundation for our entire career. And by basic clinical dentistry, I mean truly restorative work and crown and bridge work. And we have to become proficient. And that only happens by doing it over and over and over again. I mean, in dental school, I think I did 20 crowns, and it was like the top, whatever, 20%, 10% of my class in the number of crowns we did. And I know that that requirement is shrinking and shrinking, and we get more and more towards these simulated type environments. And that's great because in a way it gives us more opportunities, but it's also kind of a bummer because you don't get the real world experience that we need. And so once you get out of school, it is imperative that you form the foundation of your clinical practice, particularly for the GPs. General dentists are going to have an incredibly difficult job because we have to be good at a lot of things. Specialists have an equally hard job because they have to be incredibly good at like one thing, but we've got to become good at these clinical skill sets. So practice, and you've got to get more and more repetitions. And by being proficient, I don't just mean being fast. I mean, anyone can cut a quadrant of fillings really fast and do a really crappy job at it. But we've got to become so good at this that it's like second nature. Like you just pick up the handpiece and boom, it's done. You don't think about it. Like you don't look at the x-ray midway through your prep. You're just like, I know what I need to do, and you get it done. And so by getting good at those things, you will really form that foundation to then add in and layer in some of the more fun, more enjoyable procedures down the road. We also need to become very good at diagnosis. And having had a number of associates over the years, every time that I would hear one of them tell me, oh, I've got a case acceptance problem, or what can I do to get my case acceptance up, or gosh, patients just aren't converting treatment, I would pretty much uniformly look them in the eye and just say, it's not a case acceptance issue. It's really a diagnosis issue. And diagnosis doesn't mean looking at an x-ray and saying, there's a cavity on the mesial of number 12. I mean, come on, I hope that at any point in dental school after like year 1, we can look at a bite wing and just say, is that a cavity or not, right? I'm talking about diagnosis in a bigger picture viewpoint. And the best possible tool that you can have for that, besides your eyes, are going to be a camera and a set of mirrors. And this doesn't have to be a super expensive thing. You can go get a camera on eBay for a couple $100. You can go get a set of mirrors for $20, $30, $40. And I'll tell you what, if you get very good at using a camera and a set of occlusal mirrors to take full arch digital photography on your patients, suddenly you are going to become a diagnosis machine. You're going to put that big picture up on the screen in front of the patient and just show them their mouth. You don't even have to say a word. You just show them a picture of 15 gross alloys on the top and bottom teeth and just say, hey, Mr. Jones, this is you. What do you think? And he's probably going to be like, oh, that's gross. And this is so much more powerful than a simple little digital intraoral camera. In fact, there were a number of these things floating around the practice when I bought them, and we used them for a while. But once I really bought into this idea of taking full arch photography, I threw the digital intraoral cameras away, because they just really weren't worth it. I mean, showing a patient a picture of one tooth versus their whole mouth is tremendously different. And so watch some videos, get a camera. You don't have to spend a ton of money. This will even help you in dental school. In fact, dental school is the perfect time to learn how to do these things and get good at doing it, because you will see so many patients in your screening clinics and even in your operative clinics that just practice taking some pictures on these people, because it will pay off in the long run. And taking pictures really dovetails perfectly into the second thing that I think all new grads or soon to be grads need to really improve on, and that's communication. Our communication skills, whether we like it or not, are sorely lacking when we leave dental school. It's simply, we aren't challenged or required really to have them, because most patients that come to dental school for treatment, they know what they're getting, right? Like, there's not a whole lot of like talking somebody into doing their fillings or getting their tooth out. They're there for a reason, and you're going to get the work done. But suddenly, when your livelihood and your paycheck relies on diagnosing, doing treatment, doing it ethically, but also communicating it, is going to allow you to do more of that. And so practicing your communication skills and working on that and refining it are going to be imperative. When I got out of school, I thought I was great at talking to people, right? Even though I was kind of shy and like a little hesitant about certain things, I was like, oh, I can have a conversation with anyone. Well, this is how comprehensive exams would go pretty much from day one in my first associateship. I'd walk into the room and be like, all right, Mr. Smith, nice to meet you. I'm Dr. P. So looked at your x-rays and I see some horizontal bone loss and some pocketing up here on the upper right. So we're probably gonna have to do some deep cleaning, scaling, root planing. Got a couple of fillings that are broken over here. We're gonna replace those, some new cavities down here. And you got a chipped one over there. I'm gonna do a core buildup and crown on that. I also think that you'd really benefit from some sort of orthodontic treatment. Probably Invisalign would work pretty well for you. Straighten those teeth up so you can clean them really nice. And then when we're all done, we'll go ahead and whiten your teeth so that they look really good. Okay, sound good? And like, that was just the verbal diarrhea that came out of my mouth. And here I am thinking that I'm some skilled clinician because I comprehensively treatment planned this person. I didn't skip a thing. We're perio charting everyone to, like, much to our detriment and their discomfort, right? We're giving them all of this information, but I couldn't communicate worth a damn. I couldn't connect with these patients the way that I really needed to. And so now that same exact patient, the conversation would be more of a conversation. Hey, Mr. Smith, how's it going? I'm Dr. P. It's nice to meet you. How has your experience been at the practice so far? Has Misty been nice to you? She hasn't been hitting you, has she? Because if she is, you can tell me, like, this is a safe place, right? I'll take care of her later if she's beating you up at all. And, you know, hey, what brings you in? What can I help you with? Why are you here today? And just feel out where your patients are and figure out where they are in life. Because a lot of times the reasons that patients don't say yes to treatment and don't move forward with our recommendations isn't because of money. It's not even because of fear, and it's not because they don't like you. It's just because it's not a good time in life. And if it's not a good time in life for me to be beating up Mr. Smith about his need for 5 implants, well, I probably should change my approach in how I present it to him. And that doesn't mean that we gloss over their needs or we forget about their conditions and that we ignore their diagnosis. We inform the patient about everything that's going on. But we also have a very realistic conversation with them. Mr. Smith, I understand you've got a lot going on in life right now. Your mother's really ill and you're busy taking care of her. And look, I would love to be able to take these 5 bad teeth out and put implants in right away, but that's going to be a number of visits. And I know that might not fit with life. Am I right in saying that? And start shaking his head and I'll say, what if I could find a way to take care of the pain that you're having, take care of the disease in your mouth, get you stable, and then once life's in a better position, we take care of those implants and we get your teeth to chew with again. Suddenly, that converts the patient into somebody that trusts you because we've connected with them. And it's all because of the communication and finding out what's going on in their life. And then the third thing that we can all get better at, and it doesn't matter if you're a new grad, an old grad, a 65-year-old dentist, somebody like me, we all can be better leaders. And we can be better leaders with our team, and we can be better leaders with our patients. And being a leader means we think about others and we think about where they're coming from. And we think about what makes them enjoy what they're doing. So let's think about being a leader with our team. For the longest time when I first started practice, and even until a few years ago, I was that guy that just insisted on doing everything. Couldn't trust anyone to do anything. I planned all the implants and made my surgical guides myself. And yes, I need to be involved in that process, but I did like everything myself. I did all the design on the CEREC machine myself. I wouldn't let anyone touch it. I did all the new patient interviews myself. I wouldn't let anyone touch it. I did payroll myself. I did everything in the practice myself. And I think the team picked up on it, because suddenly it would be a really busy day and I'd be like, hey, can you help me out with this? And they'd just look at me and be like, I don't know how to do that. Or they'd do like a half-assed job at it. And it's because I wasn't empowering them to feel important. My assistants basically felt like glorified spit suckers, you know, stand there with suction. And then we got Isolite in the office and it was like, I didn't even need them. And so there wasn't a lot of job satisfaction. Same with the front office team. They basically felt like glorified receptionists that would then collect some money. And it was only when I realized that I had to give things up and I had to stop taking on the entire burden myself and teach people how to do the things that they were capable of doing and find out what makes them tick. Like, I've got one assistant who just loves being the one to coordinate all of my new patient consults, loves to coordinate all of my implant cases. She has every piece and part labeled and baggied and ready to go for every case that we have coming up. She is in the room with every new patient that comes in for a consultation the entire time. She'll sit there with them all through the financial arrangement process, all the way up until they get scheduled, because that's what she enjoys doing. She doesn't enjoy sitting there chairside with me while I do fillings or while I do a crown. It's not what she's good at. And luckily, I was able to figure out a way to kind of slot her into that. And look, I've got a lot of liberties because I'm the practice owner. I can get away with anything. I can dedicate one teammate to doing the most mundane thing if I want to. And for a lot of you, you'll be going into associateships or residency programs or maybe a startup practice opportunity where you won't have that luxury at first. But don't let that hold you back from being a great leader. Even if you're the brand new associate at the biggest DSO, you can still be a leader with your team around you, because they'll see the way that you present yourself to patients and the way that you present yourself to their colleagues, your other coworkers, and they'll understand the sense of urgency that you're talking about treatment with patients. And if you have that sense of urgency, or if you are kind and respectful of everyone, they'll pick up on that and start to do the same thing. And I know I wish I had really learned that skill earlier on, because unfortunately I lost some good people that chose to find another path in dentistry rather than sticking it out working with me. So that's kind of my first foray into dentistry. And I mean, geez, that was like, what, 2 years? You know, my first job, buying a practice, and then everything starts kind of clicking and humming along, and it all feels good, right? Like, finally, I connected with my team. The ugly tears were gone. We finally were a cohesive unit. People were pretty more or less happy coming into work. Patients seemed to be connecting with what we were doing. Practice numbers were trending the right way. And, you know, about a year into practice ownership, I said, you know, I think we've got this pretty well figured out, and I'm hungry. I'm excited. I'm ready to bring the next growth catalyst into the practice. And so I went to a seminar, a sales event that was focused on in-office CAD/CAM dentistry and specifically using the CEREC system. And it was like 30 seconds of playing with this video camera on a model of teeth and seeing it scan and showing up on the screen. And I just immediately knew that this is the way that I wanted to practice. It was like the vision that I had for my practice was finally showing itself to me, as weird as that sounds, on this computer on wheels. And so I instantly, of course, buy this machine. I have a bit of an addictive personality in that regard. I see some shiny object and I just have to have it. I'm the guy that pays for overnight shipping on, you know, a new shirt or a pair of shoes, even though I'm not home the next day. So I buy this piece of equipment, get it into the practice, and like instantly just go to town and learn everything I possibly can. I watch every video possible before the machine even shows up. Like I get home from the course that weekend and I'm like sitting on the couch late at night with my laptop, like propped up on my knees. And I'm like watching these videos, and my wife comes out of the bedroom into the living room and she's like, "What are you doing?" I like shut the lid real quick. I'm like, "Nothing, don't worry about it." And, and I just immersed myself in this world because I knew that that was what I needed. And as I started getting deeper and deeper and deeper into this, I made some great connections with incredible educators and people that ended up being some of my best friends, not just in dentistry, but in the world. And it was all because of this silly piece of equipment, right? It's a crown maker, for God's sake. Like there's nothing special about this, except I finally found what I felt like was my sense of purpose. And I'm so thankful that I did, because having this group of people around me has pushed me continuously through my career. Even today, I mean, there's a text chain of probably 25 of us that educate, speak on this type of technology, and we are talking constantly throughout the day. And half the time it's about dentistry, half the time it's about, you know, silly stuff that probably don't need to mention in polite company. But we have this bond and this ability to push each other. And all, you know, we'll be texting and somebody will be talking about this, you know, new way that they're doing billing for medical billing for extractions and bone grafting. This was a conversation we had the other day. And I'm sitting there saying, holy smokes, you know, we do this 50, 60 times a month. Why am I missing out on this? And so suddenly I've learned something from somebody that I actually taught and brought up through this process. And having these people around us is so important. And for a lot of you, I'm sure you've made those connections, but I'm going to emphasize it again, to once you find people, like-minded people that aren't afraid to push you and that aren't afraid to make you uncomfortable, but will also put their arm around you and have your back every step of the way, don't let those people go, because we need to have them around. All right, so I guess the point here is that I knew I needed something to happen in my practice to really catapult us into the future. And I wasn't content with the status quo. We're all going to reach that point. All of you will hit that point where you say, gosh, it's you know, it's been a great journey and I've learned so much already, but it's time for that next step. At a certain point, you have the skill set, you have the ability, you have the desire and drive. You've just got to make that leap. And just like I did by buying a cone beam and a CEREC machine within 3 months of each other, I mean, adding to my mountain of debt for a practice, it was the right thing for me to do. And I'm so thankful that I did. And if I had listened to logic at that moment, and if I had listened to any naysayer or somebody that said that technology was still too immature for us to rely on, I don't know that I'd be where I am today. And, you know, that's also saying, again, we've got the scale. We don't want to let our drive and our hunger outweigh the logic. So we have to be really competent and comfortable with weighing those things out. All right, so, you know, that's a little bit about where I started and some of the things that I've done along the way. And, you know, I would love to sit here and tell you more and more about the specifics. And I wish that I had a roadmap of every single step of the way for you. And the reality is I don't. The reality is we have to make our own journey in this profession. And it's such a great time for all of you to be coming up through this profession. And I know that if you take all of these experiences that you're getting all through dental school, listening to people like me, hopefully there's others that you get to hear some of their ups and downs as well. And hopefully those things can help you in your decision-making process. Because like I said, I didn't get any of this. I was kind of just winging it. And there's nothing worse than just winging it when it comes to your career. So in a way, I'm saying, be like me, but don't be like me. And I'd love to spend more time telling you about the 7 practices that I bought and then ended up selling them all off, or losing 4 associates within 3 weeks of each other, or even kind of bottoming out about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I was struggling to make payroll on the remaining practices, and how I had to dig myself out of that hole Those are stories for another day, and hopefully we can meet up along the way, and I can share some more things like that with you. Hopefully it's at a, a nice like fireside chat, or like at a bar somewhere on the beach, and we can just kind of shoot the breeze a little bit and talk, and you can tell me some of your stories as well. But I do want to leave you with this, that there are a few things that I want you all to focus on. Number one, become great at diagnosis. Buy a camera. Just figure out a way to get a camera. You can get any old beat up camera with a lens and a few mirrors on eBay or Amazon. Just do that and start working on it. Whether you're a first year, whether you're a fourth year that's about to start working, just do that. YouTube dental photography, and that'll at least get you started. Okay, that's number one. Number two, be humble. Be thankful for where you are, even when it seems like everything's against you. Just be thankful for what you have and where you are in your journey, because I'm telling you, if you keep your head down and you just keep going to work every day, you're going to get through it. And I'm living proof of that. And then finally, find that group of colleagues, mentors, teachers, whoever it is. Become a teacher, become a leader, but find those people and keep them nearby, because without people like that by your side, the journey is going to be very difficult, if not impossible. And unfortunately, early on in my dental journey, I chose to try and go it alone. And I'm just so glad that I found the people that support me and that are here to help me along the way. So I want to say thanks again for everyone being here. It's an honor. It really is fun for me to get to share any of this with students. I will make sure that my contact information gets shared. I probably should have had like one slide with that. Oops. You can find me on Facebook or on Instagram. I'm sure I show up. You can email me. It's JP, like my initials, at evodds.com. If there's anything that I can do to help you along the way, I'm not here to sell anything. I don't have stuff. I don't have products. I'd love for you to come to a class in Raleigh, North Carolina at some point, but when that makes sense. But if you've got questions or I can help you, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I think we've got some time. If there's any comments or questions that came up, I'm happy to answer. I'm yours as long as you want me.
So I've had several people messaging me saying that they're really enjoying listening to you speak, and that they would definitely like to have you back to speak about your buying your practices and everything else that's happened. So very good feedback so far. And I had someone mentioning the bourbon you have behind you, and
oh yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know anything about bourbon, but they said that it's really nice bourbon and that they wanted to hear about how you acquired a lot of it because they'd been looking.
That's a great question. So it's funny how these things happen. I've got probably on the shelf, I think there's 8 bottles still, and I have another case locked up in a safe at my house. Blanton's really hard to find bourbon that's been released overseas. So I've got a patient who is a liquor distributor here locally, and he connected me with this guy in Australia, of all places, that is just the connection, I guess, for getting this stuff. And I emailed him one day. I'm like, hey, Jim told me to email you and see if you like had a bottle of this stuff laying around. And he's like, well, how many do you want? And I go, all of it. And so like periodically I will just get a box that's shipped through DHL. I didn't even know DHL was still a thing. But it usually means the package is coming from really far away. And it's a DHL box with like 4 bottles of impossible to find bourbon that came from Australia. It's incredible. It's like, and so now this guy, my patient, he gets like all his work for free for life, basically. It's just like the rule. His account even says like bourbon guy, free treatment, like an alert pops up.
I love that. That's perks of being a businessman and having the connections.
Yep, exactly. Hey, look, it's all about connections. It's who you know, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's great. I haven't received.
I'm surprised nobody mentioned my Bernie Sanders doll in the background. Hey, everyone, please share this. Ask around, ask on social media. If you know who sent me this crocheted Bernie Sanders doll, please have them contact me. This showed up in the mail. I was gone for spring break, and Bernie shows up and he's in a box on my desk waiting for me when I get back. And I'm asking the team, I'm like, okay, who did this? Like, who bought it? I'm asking my friends, nobody has fessed up to it. And so now I've got little like angry Bernie
Oh,
like
that's
hanging
so
out with
fun
me.
though. A crocheted bird.
Oh,
Wow, what a spontaneous gift.
what a weird thing, right? But I'm surprised nobody mentioned Bernie.
No, they mentioned the Sarek behind you as well. That you have all this, everything behind you is just, it's like a mirage of dental things and business things and fun things.
I'd love to say I like set this up on purpose, but seriously, if you walked in like tomorrow morning, it would be set up the same exact way.
Love that.
Not that clever.
Love that. Oh, it looks like Diana Kim has a question. Diana, do you want to unmute or do you want to put it in the chat? Oh, yay. Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your story. I am curious
Yeah, of
how you
course.
go about hiring your associates. If you look at a specific, Indeed.com, LinkedIn, words
Yep.
of mouth, what types of platforms do you use for that?
That's a great question. So the answer is yes to all of the above. I mean, I have an active Indeed search for dentists, right? I'm just always looking. So if somebody's out there and their resume comes across, I at least pull it off the platform and look at it. And I'll have my office manager reach out to the doctor and just say, hey, it's, we're not necessarily hiring right this moment, but, what are you looking for exactly? Because you never know when that right connection might happen. So that's kind of an ongoing thing. But where I've really found the best associates over the years have been my connections with the supply reps. Supply reps are like the gatekeepers to everything dentistry. So whether it's Henry Schein, Patterson, Benco, whatever company is kind of big in your area, as a soon-to-be graduate or new graduate, I would connect with any of those reps that you can. In fact, it might even be worth calling up to like the local branch and asking the whoever answers the phone, like the receptionist, just be like, hey, who's your top sales rep? I'm a dental student. I just want to know who your top sales rep is because I want to be their friend. And like make a connection with that person, because that top rep is going to know all the good doctors. Like they're going to know all the big practices and the big accounts. And if you get to know that person pretty well, they're going to keep you in mind when, Dr. Smith ends up with a new position, or current associate went on to buy a practice, or whatever the situation is. That's where I've found really my best associates.
Great, thank you.
Of course. And, I think it's also, Emily, you mentioned earlier that there were some comments about, buying practices and those kinds of things. And that's a topic for truly a whole nother day. And that's why I really didn't dive into it too deep, because if I get going on that, like you'll never see me stop. And so I'd be happy to maybe set something back up down the road and talk a little bit about that, how the process and the mindset of, number one, kind of looking for the practice, but then two, some of the actual nuts and bolts pieces that have to go into acquiring a business and making it your own, from a regulatory legal standpoint, the, different insurances that you need to have to keep yourself out of trouble, the credentialing process, there's hiring people, HR. Oh my God, we could see, here I go. We could stay here all night talking about this.
Yeah, we would love to have you back. I think that's something that, this talk was great. It gave people a good idea of, real life things you went through. I think one thing is when you said that you quit your residency to go buy a practice, a whole bunch of people were like, whoa, that's,
yeah,
not a decision you hear very often, but a good one to
no,
hear. It's a real thing.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was a hard decision to make. And it was one of the things that I'm certainly not like proud of for doing, because it left a lot of people in the lurch. And, but it was, I guess, the right thing for me to do at the time. And it really, more than that, it was a example to me that had I known that I just needed to focus on like a couple of things to get better at initially, I ideally would have just gone and found a job and worked there while I kind of sorted out life, instead of taking up a residency slot that somebody else probably wanted.
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate you being like real about that and telling us how it all worked out for you. And, I'm sure that there would be other people in that situation. So maybe your advice, your
Yeah.
words of wisdom will definitely help people along the way. So it's
Well, I sure hope so. I mean, that's the whole point. Like, really, it's about kind of giving back, and that sounds so cheesy. Like, even just hearing the words come out of my mouth, but it is important for us to give back. And dentistry is one of those really cool professions where we can give back a lot. Like, even as an associate, you're kind of in control of what you do, and so we have the ability to help our patients and our community. And I've chosen to help those around me in the profession as well. And I think it's really important that we do that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I want to thank you again for being with us tonight. I won't take any more of your time unless anyone else
No,
has more questions. Otherwise, we can say to be continued, and hopefully we'll be able to get you back here.
that sounds great. Sounds great. Well, thanks again, everyone. Have a good night. I hope Friday is pretty easy for you. I'm off tomorrow, so yay me. Much needed break. So good luck with finals, everyone that's coming up on it too. All right.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr.
All right.
Amrita Patel, for putting this together as well, for getting us connected.
You
Yes,
are welcome.
thank you,
I'm
Amrita.
still here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
great night, everyone. See you all soon.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.